Hey everyone, welcome back to First-Hand Globetrotting. Today I'll tell you all about Victoria, Canada. It's way out on Canada's west coast in the province of British Columbia. And because it's close to their biggest west coast city, Vancouver, it sometimes gets overshadowed, so you may not have heard much about it before. But I think its smaller size and how close it is to some amazing nature makes it worth checking out. To start off, it's on an island, Vancouver Island. But don't let the name of the island fool you. The city of Vancouver isn't actually there. It's over on the mainland. So since it's on an island, you have two ways to get there: on an airplane or on a ferry boat. The airport isn't huge, so there won't be too many international flights there. But there are plenty of regular flights to Seattle and Vancouver, so you shouldn't have any trouble connecting through those cities. If you're driving, the ferry terminal has regularly scheduled ferry service to mainland Canada and a bunch of smaller islands. And there's even a passenger ferry from Seattle to downtown Victoria. Once you get there, it's a pretty small city, so if you get a hotel near downtown, you should be pretty close to everything. The centerpiece of Victoria is the Inner Harbor. It's a great place to start your trip and take a walk by the water. The harbor is lower down than the road, with a little path that you can take to see the water and all of the boats. Plus, it's lined with plenty of little food stalls and souvenir stands and places to sit, so it makes for a really nice spot. The Inner Harbor is surrounded by some of the most recognizable buildings in the city. To start, you've got the old Empress Hotel looking out over the water like a big coastal castle. Then, on the other side is the British Columbia Legislature, since Victoria is the capital of the province. Not only do you have a big, grand government building, but there's also a really impressive totem pole outside of it, the Knowledge Totem Pole. If you spend any time at the Inner Harbor, you're going to notice that there are a lot of float planes taking off and landing on the water. The Inner Harbor is Canada's busiest float plane airport, so you'll see plenty of planes in the air. After you've spent some time in the Inner Harbor, you can take a walk over to the Ogden Point Breakwater. The first thing you'll notice when you get there is that it's decorated with some great native Canadian artwork all along it. You can walk out on it all the way out to the lighthouse at its tip. And as you go, you'll be able to see across the water to the mountains over in the USA. Definitely a great spot if you want to stare out at the water. It almost makes you forget that you're only a short walk from downtown Victoria. Nearby, you can stop in at Fisherman's Wharf. It's full of rows and rows of multi-story, colorful houseboats with each pier like its own little street. So you can just wander around through it and see what it would be like to live in a little community on the water. It even has its own little shops and restaurants there. And if you look in the water, you might even see a seal or two swimming around looking for some leftover food. Another area worth checking out is Victoria's Chinatown. It's not all that big, but it's really old. Victoria has the second oldest Chinatown in North America after San Francisco. There's the main Chinatown road filled with all the shops and restaurants, but the coolest parts are the little alleyways that branch off the main road, little areas hidden away from the rest of the city. Another thing that's hidden away in Chinatown is a Chinese temple on the top floor of one of the buildings. It's easy to miss and requires going up a steep, narrow staircase, but it's definitely worth it. Even though it's small, it's a great place to visit if you're interested in Chinese temples, since it's the oldest one in Canada that's dedicated to the sea god Tam Kung. You might not expect it, but Victoria even has a castle. Craigdarroch Castle isn't the type of ancient stone castle you'd find in Europe. It's a Victorian-era castle from the 1800s, which is about as close to a castle as you'll find in North America. But it's pretty fun to tour inside and see the types of homes that ultra-wealthy Europeans would have built back then to remind themselves of home. I always find it interesting to see the amount of time and money and materials and workmanship that went into building these old mansions. Okay, so those are some of the things I recommend doing in the city. But as I said at the beginning, one of the biggest draws of Victoria is how close it is to some amazing nature. One of the things worth doing is taking a whale watching trip. There are a bunch of tours that leave right from the Inner Harbor, so you'll have plenty of options. I went with Prince of Wales, and that was mostly because of their whale sighting guarantee. Since these are wild whales, they swim where they feel like swimming. So no matter how hard your tour boat tries, you may not find them. But with Prince of Wales, if you don't see any whales on your tour, you can keep taking tours with them until you finally do. On my first tour, we took one of the smaller Zodiac boats. They only fit a few people on them, and you have to get dressed up in a big survival suit, but it's a lot of fun. The boat can really get going fast on the water, so it makes for a great ride. But unfortunately, no whales. A few days later, I went on one of their bigger tour boats. Again, it was a great way to see the coast of Vancouver Island, but no whales this time either. After that, it was actually a few years before I was back in Victoria, but they still honored their guarantee and I got another free tour. And guess what? The third time was a charm and I saw plenty of whales. We got to see some humpbacks and orcas, and the whales actually stuck around long enough so we got a really good look at them. On the way back, there were plenty of other animal sightings, like an island full of sea lions. Even though it took me a few tries, I definitely think a whale watching tour was completely worth it. I mean, I got 3 great boat tours for the price of one, so I really can't complain about that. Getting away from the city center a little bit, you can stop at Esquimalt Lagoon. On one side, there's a long, sandy beach you can walk along to get some more great views of the water. As you can probably tell from this video, it's hard to go anywhere in Victoria without finding some great coastal views. There's also lots of big pieces of driftwood there, so you can just take a seat and relax. But the really great part is on the other side where the lagoon is. It's a migratory bird sanctuary, so it's always loaded with different types of wild birds. Definitely an amazing spot to do some bird watching. A little further outside of Victoria are the Sooke Potholes. Along the Sooke River, there are these deep, rocky holes that kind of look like potholes in a road. So not only can you take an amazing hike along the river and look down at the flowing water cutting through the forest and hills, but the potholes make for great places to stop and splash in the water. Even the parts that aren't deep are still really great since they have nice rocky bottoms and incredibly clear, still water. A short drive from the potholes is Whiffin Spit. It's a natural breakwater that's long and curvy with a walking path along it. The path takes you over 1 kilometer out into the water, so there are some great places to stop and check out the nearby coastline. Vancouver Island is a huge island with lots to explore outside of Victoria, but there are also a bunch of smaller islands nearby. One island that makes for a pretty good day trip from Victoria is Salt Spring Island. There's a ferry that can take you there, so you have another excuse to get out on the water and enjoy the breathtaking views of the coastline and all of the other islands off in the distance. The biggest town on the island is Ganges. It has restaurants and shops and all of the other things you typically expect from an island town. But if you happen to be there on a Saturday, you can wander around their famous Saturday market. Salt Spring Island is known for being popular with artistic types and free spirits, so the market has a rule that everything there must be made, baked, or grown by the vendor. This makes it so that it ends up having a lot more unique things for sale and not just a bunch of mass-produced trinkets. For my food recommendation, I think you should try a Nanaimo bar. It's a famous Canadian dessert named after the city of Nanaimo, further north on Vancouver Island. There are 3 layers of goodness with a crumb crust, custard icing, and chocolate. Definitely a great treat while visiting Victoria. So that's Victoria, Canada. As you saw, it's a smaller city and doesn't really have any huge, internationally known tourist attractions to visit. But for me, how close it is to so much natural beauty was its biggest selling feature. The nature spots I talked about were all within a 30-minute drive of downtown. If you explore further outside of Victoria, Vancouver Island has even more amazing nature to see. So, if you want a smaller, laid-back city that gives you easy access to Canada's West Coast coastal beauty, then you'll probably love Victoria. Like always, if you have any questions about Victoria, ask me in the comments. And don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe to my channel. On Instagram, I'm Firsthand Globetrotting. On Twitter, I'm Firsthand Globe. Follow me on there. And don't forget, it's an incredible world out there, so pick up your passport and do some firsthand globetrotting of your own.